Hello and welcome to the Euro What, episode number 73 for the week of January 20th, 2020. I'm Mike McComb, and I'm joined today by Ben Smith. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Mike.
We are a pair of Americans trying to make sense of the Eurovision Song Contest. And this week, we'll be talking about the avalanche of news from the last couple of days. How's it going, Ben?
It's good. I am tired but happy, and apparently I missed a lot that happened today while finishing up stuff at MIT.
Yeah, I don't know why today
why today?
I mean, it is a day off here in the States, but that doesn't give license for, like, all of the news to happen. Like, I had laundry and stuff, so... there was just so much going on. I guess we should just dive right into it.
Fully agreed. Let's do it.
Yeah. So the first item on the list today, they have named the new executive supervisor for Eurovision and Junior Eurovision, and it's Martin Österdahl. He is from Sweden. He worked with Sweden's broadcaster for a handful of years. He was in charge of their hosting presentation in 2013 and 2016. And he's also been a member of the EBU reference group from 2012 to 2018. So has a lot of experience with Eurovision and working with Jon Ola Sand, whose job he will be taking. Not too much other information about him, like in terms of resume, has been revealed or announced or anything like that. So did a little digging on his LinkedIn and saw that he is an author and found some of his books on Amazon. And they're kind of the special ops something thriller. I don't know. It's a genre I'm not particularly familiar with.
Just kind of like a Jack Ryan vibe.
Yeah. But apparently, they're very successful and have been translated into about a dozen languages. The ones that are in English that are available, this is the Max Anger series.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah. The two titles that they have available for only a couple of bucks on your Kindle, Ask No Mercy, and my favorite title, 10 Swedes Must Die, which I'm sure the books are fine. I just thought that was like a kind of cute element to add into all of this. So congratulations. He will be taking over the role. They keep reporting it as soon as the grand final is over. As soon as the confetti button is hit, it is then Martin's show to run from that point on. So yep. Congratulations to him. Jon Ola Sand will still be around.
Jon Ola Sand is not going away. He still will be here for 2020. He's just sort of looking very happily towards retirement. Possibly just because he doesn't have to do interviews like the one that he had last week, where I forget if it was like a talk show or something, but he was asked some questions about if America will ever participate in the contest. He essentially vamped for time. He mentioned that they are developing America Vision or whatever we call that when it actually happens.
Mm-hmm. If it actually happens.
If it actually happens. Look, Mike, it's still in development. It's still in active development, like 30,000 other projects in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
It could happen at any second.
Yeah. I know how turnaround works.
He's just like, I do appreciate it. He's just like, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And if that goes well, then we'll maybe consider possibly down the line that it could join Eurovision. Yeah, which is about what I would say too, is okay, let's do step one. Let's do step one and see if step one works before we get to letting us in.
I mean, but the thing is, the way that I've just been kind of conceptualizing it is, it would be like me saying, I might invite Barack Obama to my birthday party. I haven't decided yet, but if I'm interested in doing that, and if he happens to be available, then sure, Barack can come to my birthday party. And it's just nobody asked for this. Who is asking for this? Because a couple of the forums that I'm on Facebook for Eurovision stuff, nobody's excited about it. I mean, people are still...
Nobody wants this.
Yeah, people are still kind of grumbling about Australia participating. And, Australia at least has an interest in Eurovision.
Has an interest in a fan base for this.
Right. And they have put in the time and the effort in Eurovision. Whereas, United States, I understand that it was, trying to fill time for an interview. But any time that Eurovision comes up and it's like, oh yeah, I'm a fan of Eurovision. Like the question is just like, oh, do you think the U.S. should participate? And my answer is almost always no.
Just like an immediate no.
Yeah, because like we don't have to be
involved
everywhere.
in everything.
Yeah, and we will not do well at Eurovision.
We will not do well. Two, we will be very mad about it, and then we will stomp off in a huff.
Yeah. So it's just there's.
In summation, ugh.
I don't even know why I'm getting so worked up about it, since like there are so many carts that we have to get the horse in front of before that happens. Yes. But
there are so many dominoes that need to drop before this one falls.
Internet is grumbling. I am grumbling with the internet. All is well. So
coming to a screen near you immediately after AsiaVision.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Where's that cart and horse? Come on.
We keep kicking that ball down the road.
Yeah. We'll see, I guess. Getting back to this year's Eurovision, we could talk about countries
that will be happening.
Yeah, an actual event that will be happening with countries that actually want to participate and are actively doing the thing.
They're actively doing all the things to pick their entry. France has definitively decided they're not going to do Destination Eurovision or some other viewable selection process this year. It has just gone ahead and selected Tom Leeb. He is 30. He is a singer, actor, and comedian. He's like a less raspy, kind of country-tinged John Mayer, which is an interesting descriptor to me. And he opened for Sting at a couple of dates in France last fall.
And I think France did a very good job of picking the human equivalent of the Chris Evans sweater from Knives Out. He is a very handsome individual. So, like, I know the theme this year is boys. But yeah, France
so many boys this year.
Yeah, but France thumbs up. So he sounds fine. I listened to one of his songs, but it's just like, oh, yeah, this is very sweater. So
my brain also just went sweater.
North Macedonia also announced that they're doing an internal selection, which is no big surprise. They've been doing that for the last few years. And they have announced Vasil Garvanliev as their singer. He is 33 and a classically trained baritone. He sang backup for Tamara last year. So he's definitely has experience on the Eurovision stage. And he competed in Skopje Fest back in 2007 to try to represent what was then former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Supposedly that may have been where he met Tamara, because she also competed in that event. And the interesting thing about Vasil is he used to be based in Chicago, and I happened to land on his Facebook page, and it's a friend of a friend situation, which was totally unexpected. So we are 2 degrees away from the Eurovision stage, Ben.
It's happening. It's finally happening.
And no word yet on what his song is going to be, but it's interesting to note that this will be North Macedonia's 20th participation at the contest. So, number that ends in 0, get hype. So,
yep. And once again, so many boys. Remaining Eurovision nations send a lady challenge.
Yeah. I mean, Bulgaria's cornered the market on that.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing, Bulgaria. All right.
Keep it.
So much other selection-related stuff in the last week. A lot of songs dropped, a lot of selection process updates. Portugal has released all 16 songs that'll be competing in Festival de Canção. All of them are on Spotify in a convenient album format, which is really nice. Festival doesn't kick off until middle of February, but you can start getting really analytical with Portugal at your leisure. So...
Alternately, if that Spotify album is not doing it for you, Iceland has also released their album of this year's Söngvakeppnin competitors. All 10 entries have been released. 6 of them have English versions as well, which I kind of love, because Söngvakeppnin does a thing where they make all of their participants do their first round in Icelandic and do the second round in the way it will eventually be performed, whether that will be in English or Icelandic. So it's really cool to me that we're seeing more artists stick with, no, we're just going to do Icelandic. We can do an Icelandic song. It will do fine. And then a weird note is that apparently Netflix is sponsoring Iceland's participation this year. And I guess part of that makes sense just because the main characters in the Eurovision movie that Will Ferrell is doing are Icelandic. And at least the article I read was tying it to Netflix wanting to get a bigger foothold in Iceland but it's still just very strange to me. Is it just like we're sorry that we have to cut all of the bits of your entry that we shot in Tel Aviv out of our movie because our characters are going to be the Icelandic entry? Or just like, what's going on there? Because that's just real strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting from like the business standpoint, just because I have to imagine the streaming market is going to be very strong in a place like Iceland, where you're going to be indoors for a good chunk of the year. So, like, if you have those eyeballs, might as well get them. But yeah, like it didn't seem like as explicit that it was a tie-in with the Eurovision movie, but I'm curious to see what develops from this and
Yes.
like what the end game
Meanwhile, I will be
is
over here with my corkboard,
Yep.
pinning various pictures and tying them together with red string.
Excellent.
Other news from Iceland this week. Keino will be performing at the final, which the Songbook Cabinet final has a long tradition of having performers from other nations from the previous year perform. Like they've had Eleni Ferreira, they had Roman Bengstrom a few years ago. So Keino just makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then elsewhere, Hatari released their album Nesutrans last Friday, and it's very good. Yeah, pick that up.
Excellent. Czech Republic has finally dropped the songs for this year's process. It delayed a couple of weeks, I think, with the changeover from being a televised show to just being fully online again. And yeah, voting is open for all 7 entries, and that can be done through the Eurovision app. Which means that anybody can vote on it, regardless of if you're in Czech Republic or not. If you are in the Czech Republic, that will count towards the public vote part of the final scoring mechanism. That'll be 50% of the overall score. And any votes that are outside of the Czech Republic will count towards the international juror score. They're doing another jury of Eurovision alumni like they did in the last couple of years. And each of those participants will give their scores. There'll be this international online vote score. They'll all get combined, and that'll be the other 50% of the total score. And if there happens to be a tie at the end, it's going to be the domestic online vote that will break that tie. Ben, have you had a chance to listen to any of the songs? I know they just dropped today as we recorded.
I have not. That is my to-do after we get done recording. I do like hearing that they have planned for a tiebreaker, and the voice of the tiebreaker is with the people.
Yeah, some of the songs are on Spotify. I think they're just going to be kind of trickling in this week, but all of the songs are available on YouTube, or if you go into the Eurovision app for the Czech selection, you can see the videos for all of the songs. Voting is open for, I think it's 2 weeks, and then we'll find out who will be representing Czech Republic once that closes. So it's a pretty good selection. It's a pretty good field this year.
I feel like the Czech Republic in particular has gotten very good with this, with their selection process.
Yeah. Like even though a TV process would have been fun, I really like the way that they're embracing technology, and like I think other countries might want to consider doing a process like this, particularly tying it in with the Eurovision app. Like there's really no other use for the app, like 51 weeks of the year. So.
Well, and just thinking about who they've sent based on this, like Miklos Josef, have you listened to any of his other stuff that came out in the last year? It's fantastic.
He's really good. Yeah.
It's really good. Denmark is also doing their pre-selection, which that feels like a new thing for me. Either that or I just had not been paying attention to it.
Yeah, it feels like they've been tweaking their process the last couple of years.
Like a lot of, because Norway tweaked their process this year. Denmark is doing something kind of similar, although less televised. Mm-hmm. Where 5 entries have already auto-qualified to the final. Those are yet to be announced. 9 songs will also be competing in a radio-based contest for the 3 wildcard spots. They are in 3 groups of 3, with each of those groups getting extra radio airplay in their designated region of South, East, and North. All the songs are on the DR website. They are not available on US Spotify yet, so I'm going to have to click over there. But the voting on DR website this week will determine the 3 winners for each of those regions. So they're doing kind of a very truncated version of what Norway's doing.
Song quality is good there too. Like it feels like a lot of countries are stepping up their game this year, which is really nice. So much has dropped just today. Ukraine announced their acts for this year's Vidbir. And yeah, songs haven't been made available yet, but just looking at the bios of the contestants, a lot of X Factor alumni, a lot of alumni from The Voice of Ukraine. And surprisingly, there's only one act that has previously competed in Vidbur. I don't know if that's just a change in how they're selecting acts this year, or if all of the shenanigans from last year just kind of made people not want to even bother this year.
I was going to bring that up just because, I mean, because last year there was a whole thing, we had the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then this year, it's just like, well, they were putting a restriction of, well, we want to make sure that we don't have the controversy this year, so no one who's performed in this territory can officially win. So that would have disqualified a lot of their previous participants.
It's going to be the same format that they've used the last couple of years, where it's 2 semifinals and a final, and probably a lot of self-induced controversy, but that's why we love it.
Yeah, but on the other hand, this year they will not have Jamala on the panel, which means that nobody... Well, I was about to say that means that nobody will be asked Crimea is Ukraine, but you never know. It's Vidbur.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who plays Verka, he raked Jamala over the coals in 2016 about, the art direction of her performance, and it was uncomfortable to watch, but at the same time, it was just this. It was the level of critique where it's just no, these are the changes you need to make so you will be successful at Eurovision. And
look where that went.
It worked, yes.
It did work.
Yes, but Tina Carroll, who represented Ukraine in 2006, she's going to be taking over Jamala's seat. So there'll still be that extra bit of Eurovision alumni on the panel. So
excellent. And then just under the wire and announcing this at what had to have been midnight their time, which go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Moldova has finally announced the details of their selection. I feel like they just had the entry window close. Mm-hmm. And anyways, regardless of how much time they've taken to do an evaluation, 35 acts have submitted 36 songs, and they will all be taking part in a live audition at some point. On the plus side, we have some alumni in the mix, including Pasha Parfany, their entry in 2012, which excites me immensely.
Oh, I love that performance.
Elsewhere, we have Geta Burlaku, their entry from 2008, which I remember that entry pretty fondly, and Natalia Gordienko from 2006, who I do not recall at all. The press release / announcement was just kind of open-ended, just because it was we're going to do a live audition process for all 35 acts and their songs. And then at some point we will decide if we're going to do a second round of things and what that looks like.
And I don't believe it mentioned when the live auditions are happening. It was just the list of the artists and their songs. And that's all we have to go on right now. But yeah, it's just adding to the pile, which is already very high. We had 20 songs last week, and now we're up to 150. Coming up this week, Finland is going to start announcing their artists. The way they're doing it this year, UMK, rather than what they've done the last couple of years where they have one artist and 3 songs to choose from, they're going back to having multiple artists and, having a national final amongst them. And they're going to be revealing one per day this week. Something to look forward to every day at a steady trickle instead of 36 coming down at once. So
instead of a fire hose stream of so much stuff. Elsewhere, Norway continues its expanded selection process with the 3rd week of its semifinals, which that appears to be doing well because the Heat 1 had 592,000 viewers, which is approximately 44% of the Norwegian viewing audience. So that's not bad.
That's crazy good.
Yeah.
If anything had 44% of the viewing audience in the US, that would be bonkers. That's like Seinfeld in the 90s type numbers.
That's Seinfeld in the 90s numbers. So I was absent this weekend from watching Heat 2, but I did go back and check out some performances, and it sounds like there was just a lot of emoji happening.
It was not a good selection, I've got to say. Part of it was tricky because they did the whole bingo ball allocation for the bracket for the semifinal, and the 2 good songs, I'm going to say, or at least the 2 most relevant songs, got paired up in the second battle. So the first battle, it was really a case of, well, one of these is going to win. And
well, I guess.
Yeah, and the audience was also kind of in that train because they did the graphics of the confetti cannon of emoji, and both of those songs, there was a lot of the emoji of dismay in the mix, and I'm just like, oh wow, like a lot of yellow.
The two that were like the favorites and were immediately against one another in the first round, I watched all the way through, and I watched one of the other ones and stopped at about a minute in because this is enough for me.
So the second battle was between Jaeger and Ray and Alexander, and yeah, the Jaeger performance was interesting.
Yes.
And I don't mean that in like a dismissive way. Like it was the first performance in this whole selection process that forced me to pay attention.
That was the one I immediately went back to once I got home today, just to be like, okay, I want to see what this finally looked like. And I have to say, I was not expecting the Billie Eilish-ification of Eurovision until at least 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that the performance was a little underbaked, but it was still very strong.
Yeah, that was a thing where it felt like it was the first of performance that was actually built for television. And she was doing a lot of stuff with like augmented reality graphics and stuff. And the graphics weren't as crisp as they needed to be. Like I think back to like Dami Eames' performance in 2016 and like the way that they used graphics on that one. It was kind of the same effect that they were going for. And it wasn't popping on this one. Like there was just too much happening on the screen. It felt like the audience was completely dead in that performance and like just not responding to what was going on at all.
Yeah. Okay, and how was the auto qualifier this week?
The auto qualifier this week was Diedrich and Emil. Diedrich represented Norway back in 2010, and their song is called Out of Air. And I really liked Diedrich in 2010, but like this song just felt so like the way that I described it on Twitter was it had like Jedward energy, but none of the Jedward personality to like carry it through. Like it just like they were both wearing these blue suits and like they're brothers, but it was like a love song they were singing to each other, which was really strange. And then there were like these little kids that came out and it was dancing on stage in front of childhood photos. So it was just like, is this like a reimagining of Roi? Or like, what is going on here?
I mean, I did go back and watch that one specifically because of your, this has real Jedward energy tweet. And I have to agree. It's just like, what if Jedward, but with none of the stuff that made that exciting and watchable?
Yeah, like their hair had no altitude whatsoever, and like if you're
like if you're gonna do the brother song, you have to commit to the bit.
Yeah, and it was reminding me of another song, and I could not put my finger on what it was. Did it remind you of anything?
I have to say that kind of just passed from my head immediately after watching the video.
I mean, that's fair. Like, I mean, it's not a memorable song in that regard. I mean, I guess it did kind of remind me of like the UK's 2016 entry, which had sort of the same like Jedward energy sans personality problem. And I don't know. I mean, like it feels like that one got in as an auto qualifier because it's a Eurovision alum.
Just as a legacy.
Yeah.
I would have rather seen either Jaeger or What Won get that auto qualifier and force this to have to go through the emoji confetti cannon to see what people think.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see the confetti cannon in the grand final, but yeah, like it's. I am excited about Ray and Alexander's One Last Time, though. It was very reminiscent of the Vikings from 2 years ago, and
yes,
it was another performance where like I was paying attention, but paying attention more than with Jaeger, whereas like there was not really that much emoji of dismay with this performance. Like it was a very strong vocal. The backing dancers need some work. I didn't feel like they were all giving 100%, and there were more than 6 people on stage. So if this wins, one of you's getting cut before Rotterdam.
Someone will get cut.
Yeah. So
pick it up.
This is
Steve.
where you pay in sweat. So
yeah. But yeah, no, like that. But no, like that one. That one felt like a fully figured out Eurovision performance at this point, which is nice to see.
Yes. And kind of different. I think it's just the fact that like Rain Alexander is an older gentleman and definitely not of the like boys archetype that this year's Eurovision is shaping up to be. So he has a definite point of distinction right now. So it's just gonna be him and Victoria from Bulgaria. And
if this year's Eurovision is just gonna be dudes, at least there's some diversity in the type of dudes.
Right. Yes. So, although like he also had a beard, but it was like a very bushy beard. There was stuff braided in it. There were beads. It was
it felt like the thing that keeps coming to my brain is that it felt slightly King Lear.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I mean that is the first performance of the Norwegian selection where it's just like, oh, I think this could go the distance. And that is of the 10 songs that we've seen so far. 4 more dropped on Monday, and then we'll also get Akuvi's Somme du Air on Friday. So who knows? Perhaps this is like a slow build to like awesomeness, and like week 5 is just going to be like a full set of bangers and be like, why are these in competition with one another? They should have been spread out across the 5 weeks.
This is mean. You should have spread these out.
Yes. So
how was Lithuania this week? Was there anything as catchy?
See, that's a difficult
catchy
question.
slash memorable.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there were Tusum, who has been kind of a mainstay in the Lithuania marathon process the last few years. Their entry for this year's contest called Playa, where the hook is I'm a Lithuanian basketball player, just repeated. That one seemed to win Twitter. It did not win the jury at all in Lithuania, and you really need to have some form of jury support, even if you get like a perfect score from the home audience, if you're going to make it through the process. And unfortunately, they got cut. But yeah, this was another week where I was very pleasantly surprised by what Lithuania had to offer. And it was another case of there were some songs that didn't make the cut. And I was like, oh, I'm really sad about that one. One of my favorites was A Broken Leg and her song Electric Boy. And she was the one who was wearing the QR code dress. If you happen to see any QR code jokes on Twitter.
I saw plenty of those, and as someone who normally sees those in a puzzle context, immediately disregarded them, but please explain. Yeah,
so QR code, if you're not familiar, those are like those kind of squarish barcode things where if you scan it with your phone, it'll take you to a website or like just do something automatically. And yeah, her dress just had this pattern on it that made it look like she was wearing a QR code. And I kind of wanted to hold my phone up to the screen to see what would happen if it got scanned. But her song was just kind of like punk pop, and I really liked it, but it just didn't really click with the audience, unfortunately. So that did not get through. The one that really clicked with me, like to the point where I think it's a real contender, was Monique's "Make Me Human." It was just like a really strong vocal and just felt very, very current and very outside of the process, if that makes sense. Where like, you know, where there are just some songs in like a selection process where it's just like, oh, this is just standing out based on quality, and it's just so distinct from the rest of the field, but in a good way. And yeah, that was my takeaway from that one. I am very hopeful that she does well. She finished towards the top with both the jury and the audience vote. So I think she stands a really good shot of at least making it to the final, if not all the way. So that's what I'm rooting for right now.
Cool.
There was one fun thing that happened at the end of the process. So like I'm streaming this on the LRT website, and yeah, I was a little slow to unhook my computer and all of that from my TV, and a movie started playing, and it was like, oh, it's Uncle Buck. I've never seen this movie. And it's like, I wonder like if it's just going to cut off like just for geo-blocking purposes or what have you. But no, like it was playing through, and it's like, oh, we'll just see like how movies are handled. And I wasn't sure if it was going to be subtitled or dubbed. Turns out it was dubbed. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to watch this. But the way that the dubbing worked was it's just one person who's reading the translation of the dialogue in a flat, emotionless voice. Like just reading in his text. And the thing is, like, the first bit of dialogue in that movie is between a teenage girl and her younger sister. And the voice is obviously a man in his mid-30s. So it was very jarring. And then Macaulay Culkin comes in. And this is, I think this might be like pre-Home Alone Macaulay Culkin. And his voice has been replaced with this 35-year-old Lithuanian man just saying his lines in Lithuanian. And it's just like, this is losing a lot of effect here. So it's just like, I don't know. I just thought that was a funny element to wrap up the Lithuanian process for a Saturday. That's going to do it for this episode of the Euro What. Thanks for listening. The Euro What podcast is hosted by Mike McComb, that's me, and Ben Smith.
That's me.
You can find us on our website at eurowhat.com and on Twitter and Instagram at Eurowhat. We'd love to hear your comments, questions, and topics we should talk about in future episodes. Also, let us know if you think the U.S. should compete at Eurovision. Perhaps we are the only ones grumbling. I doubt that's the case. You can subscribe to the Eurowhat on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcast app of your choice. Be sure to check out our Spotify playlist inspired by this episode. We'll be back next week to try to make sense of what's new in Eurovision.